Go. Now I hear you.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Thanks, Jim. My relationship to the church has been tied up with my sexuality from the very beginning. I actually joined a Christian church, in my case, the Episcopal Church, in 1990 because I had a bunch of fundamentalist friends who were quoting the Bible to me, and I felt very uncomfortable. But I also felt like the Bible was my book too, and so I wanted to learn as much about it as I could, and I thought the best place to do that was in a worship community. And around 10 years ago, I sort of became a little bit disenchanted with the Episcopal Church, partly because of the politics. There was a lot of controversy about gay people in the church, in the Episcopal Church at that time, and I was starting to feel like a political football. So I stayed away from church for a while, and then decided to try the Roman Church. And for me, that was a good place to kind of hide out for a while and kind of bracket the sexuality issue. It was very convenient. So I went through RCIA and was confirmed. But then I just kind of drifted around for a while, and I really didn't plug into a parish. And then finally, I literally had a religious experience at a convention for at this group called the Gay Christian Network that convinced me that I needed to do something to bring my sexuality, my identity as a person, and my spirituality together. And that's the point at which I said, sort of, oh, I could have had a V8, but for me it was like, oh, I could go to Dignity, because I knew it was there. I just hadn't really felt like going up to that point. So, and that was about 5 years ago now. So, yeah.
Very cool. Al, how about you?
Okay, my story is a little different, similar in some ways. But it was about 3.5 years ago. I didn't have any religion in my life at all. I had been raised, the family's religion was Catholic, but we never really went to church. So I didn't really know where to start. I had a grandmother who was very close to me. And she always influenced me to find some sort of religion. And she had a connection to Dignity, actually, through my father. And my father was very friendly with a gal who goes to Dignity. Bertha Pompney is her name. And my grandmother, out of the blue one day, 90 years old, suggested I look up Dignity, Gay Catholic Church, on the internet and find where they met. And that's how I found Dignity.
Wow.
And the ironic part is when I walked in the door, the first person that introduced themselves to me was Bertha Pompney, the girl who mutual friend, and I told her my name, and she asked my last name for some reason, and it's a unique last name, and she said, "You're the son of so-and-so," and I said, "Yeah," and it's sort of that whole, everything felt right, everything felt right.
Wow.
And I've been going back ever since, and I've gotten involved. I started doing the, volunteering where I could, helping where I could, and one thing led to another, and Brian asked me to become president about 6 months ago, and I decided that I would. And, it's been a really rewarding experience, just the whole journey.
Did you ever bring your grandma to Dignity? I mean, was she...
I did, yeah, I did. One day, actually, she's passed since, unfortunately, but I did bring her once, and on an Easter Sunday, and she really loved
Great.
it. She got to meet all my friends.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really great. Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
praise God for your grandma.
Yes, praise God for my grandma.
So Brian, you've been around for about 5 years. Say a little bit about what the makeup of Dignity San Diego is. Give our attendees sort of a picture.
Well, it's actually changed somewhat since I first came in. When I first came in, it was typical of a lot of Dignity chapters at that time. Others may have changed in the meanwhile too, but it was mostly older white men, and it was mostly cradle Catholics, which made me feel somewhat uncomfortable. I felt like I was trying to break into a club that I didn't know the rules to. But since then, partly because of things that I was picking up at Dignity national meetings and from other progressive Catholic groups, we've been trying to reach out to people who aren't necessarily cradle Catholics. And we also, for some reason, just started getting more young people, which was wonderful. They brought a lot of good energy into the chapter. But some of these young people, they weren't raised Catholic. And we're seeing more and more people who were not raised Catholic, but they're attracted to the Catholic tradition, or they're kind of like Al. They come from a Catholic family, but didn't really have the religious upbringing per se. And we're also getting, we have this one, heterosexual couple who bring their 12-year-old daughter pretty much every week, and they're like pillars of our community now. So we've had some transgender people. So it seems to be getting more diverse. Yeah.
You said that young people started showing up. You point to a reason? I mean, was there some marketing that the chapter did, or what happened there?
It was partly personal connections. We had one young guy who was coming, who isn't coming anymore, but he brought in a friend of his who actually was baptized in our chapter.
Really?
Yes, yeah. And he's still with us, and he serves as a Eucharistic ministry. He's actually on the community council. So that was just a gift of grace, really. And then we had another young man named George Portades come in. He's also on our community council. So it wasn't like specific outreach. Yeah, hey George.
Hey, George.
So it wasn't really anything conscious, but maybe we were sending out some vibes, and I don't know. Al, what do you think?
I think, yeah, there was nothing really, there was no effort that was actually put forth on our part that I can think of. One thing that I can say is what I've noticed anyways is that younger people tend to attract younger people, and once you have a few, then they tend to, attract each other, and it's keeping them to come back, and that's the important thing that we're finding. Having them come back was one of our challenges, and still is one of our challenges. But
and I want to go there, but I also want to mention, just interrupt with a little bit of news. Our Young Adult Caucus, Dignity USA, which is comprised of young adults from chapters across the country, but also young adults who do not belong to any chapter, but belong to Dignity USA and belong to that caucus. They've recently put together this wonderful list of ideas and suggestions to the Dignity USA communities about how to attract and sustain young adults membership. Really honest, really straightforward, and really insightful, and that will be distributed to our communities in the near future. So look for that. But Al, you mentioned it's one thing that people get, that people come in and take a look, see at your faith community. It's another thing to see people come back. Do you guys have? Does the community have strategies sort of in place to help sustain folks' participation? Brian, you want to?
Yeah, well, we've sort of learned not to jump on people too fast.
Yep.
To let them keep coming back and get comfortable before we try to press them into service. But so longer term, one thing that we are trying to do is to update and sort of modernize the liturgy a little bit. Because the feeling is that if we are getting more people who are not raised traditional Catholic, they may be looking for something a little bit more loosely structured, a little bit more free in form than what you can get by going to any regular Catholic parish now. So that's one thing that we're trying to do, but that's kind of a long-term project, and it's hard to tell whether that's having any impact on whether it's making people feel more welcome or comfortable or that sort of thing.
One thing I noticed when I was there, and I had conversation with you about this, is that you do a good job of cultivating people's participation, finding out what their strengths are, and in inviting them into ministries at mass, and also, really, and asking people directly, if they could be involved in this way or that particular way, and then really supporting that involvement, modeling and supporting and assisting. I saw that in just my brief experience there. And Brian, you did a marvelous job of sort of coaching people in their new ministry.
Oh, thank you.
That takes time and effort, I think, but I think people appreciate that. Al, were you going to jump in and say something? I thought perhaps you were.
Well, one thing that besides the liturgy part of it that we do a lot of social events. I wouldn't say a lot of social events, but we try to do as many social events as we can. And George has been really helpful in setting up some. We're lucky being in San Diego, a large, metropolitan area. We have a lot of gay-friendly events. There's a diversionary theater, a gay-themed theater that has plays and musicals and things like that. So we have outings there every once in a while. Hiking. We're having bowling night this Saturday. We're just trying to have different things going on all the time to keep people's interest so that we're not just meeting at Mass. And one thing we've been doing for a long time is having our coffee social after Mass every Mass. We have, cookies and coffee and soda and things like this. Nothing elaborate, but just something to where you can get together and talk. And that's been really, successful, I think.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that. I think that's a really crucial part of our ministry. Is that people have a chance to go and sit and socialize after the Mass in a less formal setting. So if they want to get to know people, that's a place that they can do it. And so when I was president, I was pretty adamant that we're going to have this every week. If something comes up, we'll find a way to make it happen, because I know that a lot of people look forward to that, and it's a way for people to plug in. If they are feeling a little bit lost in the liturgy or what have you.
My local community here in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, we only meet twice a month for liturgy, but after every liturgy we have potluck, so we sit down to a meal together, and I joined after that tradition had started. So you're both on the same road there. It's really nice to have that regular time to sit back and enjoy each other's company. Al, so you were fairly unchurched, huh? I mean, you were part of the Catholic family, but not necessarily particularly devout. You found dignity. What does let me start with this. What does the worship at Dignity San Diego offer to you?
Well, as far as the worship goes, it was to be honest, it was like any other. When I came, it was really more of a traditional type of liturgy. These changes we've been making to the liturgy are recent. So it was sort of, honestly, it was irrelevant to me. What I was looking for was community. And the worship parts of it came. They've developed since I first came. But when I first walked in the door, I was looking for something else. I was looking for community. And I found it. Yeah.
And what would you suggest to other chapter communities if there are attendees participating tonight from other chapters, or just from other faith communities, not necessarily Dignity communities? What would you just suggest to folks who are already in the pews when new people come in? As a way of being sort of effectively hospitable.
What we tried, we flirted with the idea of doing, we've never really formalized it, but a welcoming committee. One or two people that each week, if they see somebody new, they just go up to them and introduce themselves. And what we do at Dignity San Diego, which I have some questions about whether it works or not, is we ask them if they're comfortable being introduced at the introduction before Mass. We have somebody new with us, here's so-and-so. And some people are comfortable with that, some people aren't. But as far as just a general person sitting in the pew, definitely, if you feel comfortable doing this, step out of your comfort zone and introduce yourself to them. If you have a social afterwards, personally invite them to the social afterwards, or even offer to sit next to them during Mass. These are things that we do, and they work.
But us introverts, we get to be excused from all of that, right?
Sure. It takes an army, you know. While there's some introverts or extroverts who can fill in there, you know, and introverts.
No, I'm kidding. I'm an introvert, but that's my job too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brian, you mentioned some of the changes. You know that there have been changes recently, and that changes have spoken to some of these new members, especially those perhaps who don't come from a traditional religious background. Can you say more about what these changes are at San Diego and what the effect has been?
Well, it's been pretty minor so far. When I arrived, the changes, it's really hard to assess the effects yet.
Okay.
But when I first arrived, it was clear that at some point in the chapter's history, somebody had decided to make some of the liturgical language a little bit more inclusive. Okay. So, for instance, in the creeds, we would say Creator instead of Father, but you know that was about as far as it went. And you know, depending upon the presider, that person would, you know, sometimes change things on the fly. But there was nothing systematic. And one of the things that bothered me and still bothers me about our chapter and maybe Dignity as a whole is, but particularly our chapter, is like, where are all the women? You know, I came in and it was just like, I would go and meet people from other progressive Catholic groups in the area, and they'd say, oh, Dignity, that's just for men, right? And that just killed me. You know, because I come from a family, I have 3 sisters, I love them all. One of them is actually a lesbian, which is a true blessing for me. So, you know, it seemed to me that we really should be more conscious and systematic about making the language inclusive and thereby hopefully opening a door for somebody who, you know, might walk in and not be immediately put off by all the patriarchy in the liturgical language. But that's like, you know, that's an ongoing project because on the other hand, we don't want to change things so quickly that, you know, more people who are used to kind of and comfortable with the traditional liturgy, they get pushed out of their comfort zone. And so it's been a real kind of balancing act as far as that goes, you know, going forward. But it's an ongoing project, and, you know, it's going to take a couple of years at least, I think.
And I mean, you've pushed the envelope further, haven't you, by introducing female presiders at liturgy?
Yes. Well, we did do that. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's a good point. See, I'm so used to that now that I've forgotten about it. That's wonderful. It's become the new normal. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that was because I had been to call to action conferences, and I'd been to, you know, other Dignity chapters that used women presiders, like up in LA. And I thought, you know, why aren't we doing this? You know, this is where progressive Reform Catholicism is going. So, you know, why aren't we doing this? And so I presented this to the board a little over a year ago when I was still president. And I said, you know, are we going to do something about this or not? And so I proposed that we, you know, make a real effort to recruit some female presiders and change our policy so that, you know, that would be acceptable. And everybody was like so excited. That was like on the board. Okay. On the board. Yeah.
Al, what's been has there been some fallout from this in the community, or not so much?
Well, anytime you're going to make changes like this, especially in a Catholic organization, there was some fallout. Yeah, there was some. I mean, nobody's actually officially come up and said that this is, to me anyways, that this is the reason why they're leaving. You don't get that usually. But there has been some fallout. People have left the chapter because of it.
Okay.
I'm sure of it. Yeah.
And I am sure you expected that might be the case. I mean, you went into this with eyes wide open, I'm presuming, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was a risk we were willing to take, you know.
Yeah. What are the challenges that you see for the community looking ahead? Well, let me start here. Do either of you sort of have ideas or a vision about what the community might look like in 5 years? Are there other sorts of things you might like to see happening in San Diego as time goes on?
Who do you want to answer
Brian?
first?
Oh, either of you jump in.
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
I'll start. Because of why I came and because of what I was looking for when I came, I was looking for community. In 5 to 10 years, I see Dignity San Diego being more of a community, a bigger community, more social events, more things that you find at a traditional Catholic church. You would find, a large social calendar, things going on all the time. But it takes people to make these things happen. So, within the next 5 to 10 years, I hope to see some growth, to see a chapter, people coming through the doors. Yeah.
Brian?
Well, I kind of share Al's vision. For me, the most gratifying change over the last year or two has been the sense that there is more involvement. For a long time it was we were leaning very heavily on a few people, and now I get the sense that more people are kind of taking ownership of the chapter and also taking responsibility for making things happen. Now, we've always had really good teamwork.
Yeah.
At least, for the Sunday liturgies, it was like the best oiled machine you've ever seen. It was amazing because everybody knew what to do. But that was kind of restricted to the Sunday liturgy. And what I'm hoping for is, with Al, I'm hoping for, more teamwork, more involvement, so that people will follow their passions. I hope we get somebody who has a passion for like social outreach, for doing service work in the community, because I think that's really important to our gospel call as the body of Christ is witnessing to what we've received and wanting to give that on to the wider community. That's happening to some extent. We have individuals in the chapter who volunteer in an individual capacity for different local charitable organizations, but there's really nothing that Dignity does. We do take up a collection every week for a local food pantry. And we've been doing that, but that's easy. You just bring in your can of chili and drop it in the basket and you're done. It would be nice if we could do something more.
Yeah. And alongside of communal charitable activities, what about the advocacy dimension that Dignity carries both on the national level, and I think in every chapter that's part of the mission of our community is to be a prophetic witness. So we have traveled these personal journeys, each of us, to a place of liberation and dignity, and recognizing the love of God, the love that God has for us as we have been created, calling us to relationships of love. And that liberation is worth telling about, both in our in our civil structure and our policies, and in our church, which desperately continues to, good Pope Francis or not, desperately needs it. Have you thought about sort of a prophetic witness dimension in the community? Have folks participated in that before on an individual basis or communal basis? Is that something you're looking at for the future?
Al?
Brian, you go ahead.
Okay. It's been limited, I would have to say, and this is one of the reasons why I avoided coming to Dignity San Diego in the first place, was I got the sense it was like a gay ghetto. It was a bunch of guys who got together to do gay church, and it was a nice sort of family-like community, and it was very nice to sort of see each other every week. But it was like, okay, we've done church, we're doing church, we're getting what we want from church, and there's no don't ask, don't tell rule, so it's a lot more comfortable than it would be in a normal Catholic parish. But that seemed to be, we'd go out to like Pride festivals and set up a booth and stuff like that. But I think San Diego is not exactly the most politically active community in the world. It's been typically rather conservative. And, I'm saying this as a person from the East Coast who's used to, a much more liberal environment. And so I think, it's going to take, that's a long-term project in my view. It's going to take education first of all. But most of our people, they are like, I would say like Al, they're looking for community. They're looking for moral support, in their walk with God and, their walk as a LGBT person. And I think that's really our primary mission right now. But I would love to see it expand from there.
It definitely pushes us, doesn't it? That call to be active, visible witnesses of our dignity and the justice that demands. It really does push the edges of our comfort zones for most of us. Most of us aren't born activists and advocates. It's something that we need to be inspired to and called to, and it can be a little scary.
And then we have to define and we're actually going through a process of defining who we are and kind of defining Dignity's role in the advocacy process. Where do we fit into that whole thing? Where is that boundary? How active should we be as an organization?
Yeah. True. So we're going to go to questions soon here because there are a few questions being asked. Attendees, by all means, submit your questions in the chat box, and we'll go from there. But in the meantime, as you are doing that, as you are thinking of questions you might ask and submitting them, I want to see if our poll's working here. So let's start with an easy one, okay? How do you identify? So, folks, if you want to click on your identification and then submit your vote, that would be great.
What about also on the phone?
Who's there?
Okay, are the phones muted out?
They should.
I hear
you hear me.
Yeah, they should be muted out, but we can hear you.
Obviously,
yep.
If you can hear me, then I'm not muted out then. I'm
right.
sorry. This is Patrick Ambrosio from San Diego.
Patrick, great
I hear you.
to have you here.
Great to be on. I just tried to get on with my computer, and my computer was like, I could see you guys, no problem, but the audio was just like the worst choppy. And if I could harp in, if you're now taking questions from the peanut gallery, and I would be that. One of the comments that you were saying is for how would I identify? I identify as a gay man, but also just as a person of dignity. I've been with Dignity now for over, I would say about going on 17 years. So that's one of the things that I know that a lot of what we're hearing tonight is some of the more recent issues. But in the past, I think what really was nice to see what has happened in the past in Dignity San Diego is that it was at first one of the larger chapters because it was the first chapter of the Dignity USA. But the main focus also is the fact that Dignity San Diego has changed so much. It is now where it is today with which I would say when you look at it compared to some of the other chapters throughout the USA process, it's got one of the lower attendance.
So
and that's
Al,
an unfortunate truth.
Yeah, compared to, you get about, 25 to 30 people per week pretty consistently. I would say it probably has gone down within the past probably 3 years. Patrick's right. But, did you have a question, Patrick?
Well, my question is that if there's something that can be done about it is one thing, because that's what you were talking about earlier as what you would see as your focus. My question is more the fact that I don't think what you need to do is to try to reinvent the wheel, basically, as for what is it that you guys are trying to do that would make it what it was even becoming more than what it was before. That's my thing, because in the past, a lot of the things that really brought a notoriety to Dignity San Diego was the fact that a lot of people championed it as the first organization of the Dignity USA chapters, and the other part is that it was very politically active as well. I mean, we had council members who actually came to Dignity San Diego's chapters on a regular basis.
Yeah. I'm aware of that, Patrick. I wasn't around at the time, but I've seen like some historical documents that indicate that a lot more of that kind of stuff was going on. I'm not sure what happened to make that change. I think all organizations.
I know what happened. It's just the fact that the visibility of Dignity San Diego became not as visible in the political realm. But it was because also the fact that process.
That's what I'm
just saying that we could put it back out there that is maybe something that we could try to do. I don't know if, Al, that might be something that you might be interested in getting more involved in.
Definitely open to the idea. I saw that you'd be coming on Christmas Eve Mass. Maybe we can take some time and talk about it then.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested.
Everybody, I'm really sorry about the poll thing. There's some mystery hand behind the scenes who's closing the polls quite before they should be closed. So both of those.
Oh, that Jim, that might have been me. I thought I was just closing it for myself.
Oh no, just submit your voting. Sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's try that again then. I'm glad to hear that it was that you guys were the culprit. I was trying to clear the
window so I could see your beautiful faces. I was missing you.
Don't do that. So folks, let's try that again. How do you identify?
All right, here we go.
You shouldn't give me that kind of control. Now you know.
And now, Brian, were you also playing with my slides at the beginning of the show too, trying to get them out of the way?
Yeah, that was me. Hey, what happens if I push this button? Sorry.
Okay, Brian, just keep
all right,
your hand.
I'll keep my hand off my mouth. Oh, wait.
Remember, we do see you, Brian.
Yeah, I know. There you go. Okay.
Patrick, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself now. And
That's
if you have another question, thank you.
Okay.
Just so we can all be equal here.
Yes, that is true.
So as you're doing another poll, as you're finishing this poll, I'm going to stop the voting here. And we'll open another poll here soon. But this is from Peggy Burns, our operations manager at Dignity USA. How did you call forth women to preside? So what did that process look like?
We knew, or I had found out specifically about a lesbian woman presider through a friend who is a Roman Catholic woman priest who actually recommended her, and so I thought that would be a wonderful thing. And that this woman is also Jen O'Malley from Long Beach. She is actually also a younger person. And so in terms of the demographic that we were trying to reach, she seemed to be, really ideal. And fortunately for us, she agreed to come down every couple months to preside for us. And she's been a wonderful addition to the liturgy schedule. And then there aren't a whole, lot of other women priests who don't already have a whole bunch else going on in San Diego. But we do have one chapter member. Actually, Al mentioned her at the beginning, Bertha Popany, who was ordained a couple of years ago as a Roman Catholic woman priest. And we actually, gave all of our presiders kind of a tryout, to see how they liked us and, see, whether we thought that they fit well, with our mission and our style. And so after they all went through that, Bertha, we put her on the schedule, and so now she's a regular presider. So, but we'd love to have, any other women priests out there, if you would like to preside for us sometime, get in touch with me, info@dignitysandiego.org.
And, that's to the conversation just a few minutes ago, that was a pretty political move that you made. I mean, that's a prophetic witness. That's an act of prophetic witness to invite women to the altar in this day and age in the Catholic Church, and it's bound to ruffle some feathers. But you all did it anyway, and that's no small thing when our communities become more inclusive in their worship. Marianne has a question. There are some other progressive Catholic groups in San Diego. Can you say a little bit about them and how the chapter might or might not interact with them? Al?
It's interesting that I personally don't have that much knowledge to the other religious organizations in San Diego, but I do. We just recently got an email from Call to Action, somebody from Call to Action. We're going to have a screening of a movie, and we're just working on that right now. Brian has a lot more experience with the other organizations. We're actually going to be working together to have a lot more joint events in the future, but my involvement as of right now has been real minimal. But Brian, I think you can probably elaborate a little more on that.
Well, yeah, we when I arrived, there was already tradition in place for Dignity and a local Roman Catholic woman priest parish called Mary Magdalene Apostle Catholic Community to celebrate the Feast of Mary Magdalene together. And we would be joined in that by Call to Action and also Catholic Worker. So that was a tradition when I arrived. We continued that tradition, and we've co-sponsored some events with Call to Action and Mary Magdalene. We brought speakers in. We had Roy Bourgeois in maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. We also had Sister Janine Gramick come and give a talk, and then most recently we had Father Helmut Schiller come and do his traveling roadshow. And that was wonderful. It was an amazing experience. So yeah, we have cooperated on a number of things like that, and we plan to continue to do that going forward.
A question from Peggy again. Did the straight couple say why they picked Dignity San Diego over their local parish church?
Well, I know there was a connection there. One of their, I think it was their nephew, Denifu, was a participating member, and he brought them in just, I guess, to check it out one Sunday. And they kind of, grew attached to us, and they've been coming ever since. And Denifu since has stopped coming. I think he moved out of state. But they've kept coming, and they've been getting really, really involved. And what it is exactly that they find that they get out of it, I don't know. But we really do appreciate having them every week.
Yeah. The Twin Cities community is actually, there are more straight people than there are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender in the community. It's an odd thing, and we love it.
Wow.
I'm not sure it's normative, but it is very welcome here. I'm gonna put up that another question again, the same question we had before. And folks, if you want to weigh in here. What of these do you consider the most important issue of LGBT justice? And then submit your click on the thing and submit your vote.
Well, if I don't know what those choices are, can I just pick one of my own?
Sure. What's you don't see the screen?
No, I don't. That's one of the things. Like, I saw the screen earlier, but I turned it off because it was too choppy for a vocal. So it made easier sense for me just to listen in on the conversation on the phone.
Okay.
And that's how I got the phone number. But just to provide feedback on that question is that I think one of the major things that Dignity San Diego hasn't really done as much currently as it's done in the past is not just the outreach per se, but also getting the word out through different networks. And that's one of the things that, because most of the prior years in the Dignity San Diego past, it had a lot of people that were already connected in different organizations, either...
Patrick, I'm going to interrupt you here. Patrick,
okay.
I'm going to interrupt you here. The question was much more general, and so if you're dealing with particular questions and they're good ones for your chapter, I would suggest you have these conversations with these two. But this poll question was a lot more general in terms of what sort of, for instance, marriage equality or non-discrimination. So I'm going to ask you to mute yourself again here too. I'm sorry that it's difficult to really participate without the screen in front of you.
Well, that's okay. It makes it easier just to even hear in.
Yep, I hear you.
Well, and if the question is geared towards marriage equality, definitely marriage equality.
Okay.
That was.
Thank you.
Good.
And then I'm going to put another poll up here, folks, and have your questions ready. We still have a few minutes left. But what would you like to see Dignity USA concentrate more on? And Patrick, I'll give these to you. You can just think about them.
Okay.
But again, I would prefer that you just stay muted, just because it's a little disconcerting when a voice comes in and we're not used to it. Okay. What would you like to see Dignity? So mute your phone. That would be great. What would you like to see Dignity USA concentrate more on? Chapter support, chapter and caucus support, LGBT advocacy and active witness within the church, LGBT advocacy and active witness within civil society, or other? All right, the majority are looking at LGBT advocacy and active witness within the church. Thank you, folks. All right, another question from Mary Ann. California's been a little schizophrenic around marriage equality, so it was legalized, then it was unlegalized, and now it's legalized. What effect did that have, if any, on the chapter? Have you seen any folks come to the altar to get married at Dignity San Diego?
We've had a lot of requests via the website. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Al.
We've had a lot of requests come in via the website since since it has been schizophrenic. We see them come and we see them go, and we see them come and we see them go. But we have done a couple. Father John has witnessed, I think 2. Is that right, Brian? Since the laws passed.
Yeah, it's a little strange because some of our presiders kind of do this, as a side thing on their own, and it's not necessarily under the auspices of Dignity.
Right.
And so, it's not clear that, we haven't actually had like any ceremonies, at our normal liturgy. But we have had some long-term members get engaged. and one couple, actually a long-term couple, they'd been together well over 20 years, got married at the Diversionary Theater. It was a private wedding, but they had Father John preside, and they asked me to sing. So there was and there were a lot of Dignity members, both past and present there. So that was a really joyful occasion, and a sign of the changing times, which was very welcome. But in terms of formally, not a whole lot, actually. 'Cause that's one of the things that we need to kind of grapple with is to what extent do we want to be in the business, of solemnizing weddings.
Are other chapters getting involved in this area, Jim?
Not sort of marketing themselves as a wedding chapel sort of thing. No, but there have been weddings within chapter communities, to be sure.
States where you go.
I'm sure you'll see one or two in the next few years.
Yeah, we will. Sure. We will.
So I want to ask the both of you, what do you think of Pope Francis? Let me just leave it as an open question. Al?
Well, what's not to like so far? Everything I hear so far, I really like. He's, a true pastor as far as I've been observing. He's working with the homeless. He's out there getting involved. And who am I to judge? That's the first pope I've heard say anything close to that regarding, the LGBT community. To be honest, I don't like the fact that he said that there will never be ordained women priests. He did explicitly say that, and that kind of was a little disappointing, but
but I don't think he said there never will be. He says, he did shut the door, but if we had a conversation last month with the theologian Richard Galardes, and he had a wham bang of an answer for that. I mean, in various generations of the church, popes have been pretty strong to say this will never happen, and it happened. And so he offered some hope, and it was sensible. He wasn't sort of pie in the sky sort of thing. He was really grounding it in past historical experience. But anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. So
okay, thanks.
Go on.
But yeah, so far I really like what I'm seeing. I like what I hear, and we'll see what else comes.
Brian?
I think he's doing wonders for our brand. Yeah, he's like making Catholic cool again, if it ever was cool. But I am just so excited about his leadership, and I really do believe that he's inspired by the Holy Spirit, and he's more importantly, he's brave and he's courageous, and he says things that really need to be said. What speaks most to me is his advocacy for the poor, and a clear indication that the church really needs to be on their side. We went through two papacies where it was clear that the church was siding with the establishment. They were siding with the wealthy, with the status quo. Especially in Latin America. And so I'm hoping, just the fact that he's saying these things is just really clearing the air and kind of setting a new benchmark for what being Catholic means and what gospel witness means. And so I'm hoping for more.
Yeah. Good points. I am going to put up our slideshow here just to and Brian, just keep your
I won't touch it.
Keep your hands off of it. So here's a picture of Dignity San Diego, some of the members after Mass one day. It's a little small here, but also attendees, I want to draw your attention to our social presence, our media presence, of course, our website, www.dignityusa.org. And if you haven't joined us on Facebook, please do so, facebook.com/DignityUSA. and we're also on Twitter for those of you who do some tweeting. And just find us at the @DignityUSA. So again, if you haven't logged on in any of those ways, we invite you to do so and participate in dignity in whatever way you feel comfortable. And I'm going to send this off to Mary Ann. So Mary Ann, if you want to come on board here, wrap us up.
Great. I always love when these conversations circle back to the gospel that joins us all together. So it was great to have that as kind of a concluding thought. And thank you so much, Al and Brian and Jim. This is a very engaging and informative conversation. I'm walking away with lots to think about. So thank you so much for that. And thanks to everybody who participated with comments, questions, or reflections of your own. I'd really like to encourage you to just keep your browser open at the conclusion of this, and a very brief survey will pop up. If you could just take a couple minutes to fill it out while this experience is fresh in your mind, it really would help us out, and we really appreciate your input. In addition, we'd just like to tell you that we'll be meeting again on January 21st at 9 p.m. With another Dignity member, Joe Gentilini of Dignity Columbus, and the author of the memoir Hounded by God, which has been very well reviewed and received out in the world. So mark your calendars and join us for that. Also, this session has been recorded. You'll be receiving an email with the link to that. If there are friends that you'd like to share this recording with, please go ahead and do that. And recordings of other sessions can also be accessed from the Dignity USA website. So thanks again to our presenters for this conversation, and mostly for the work that you do to ensure that Dignity continues to have a vital and vibrant presence in the San Diego community. It's a chapter that's close to my heart. I spent a lot of time in the 90s, so appreciate all the work that has been done there for well over 40 years now. So thank you so much to you and all the members of San Diego for sharing your experience with us. And to everybody who's participating, thank you again. Good night, and may you have a very joyful end of Advent and a lovely Christmas season. So take a moment, fill out the survey, and we'll see you on January